Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Hello, everyone. I'm Another View producer, Lisa Godley, in for Barbara Ham-Lee. When you hear the word environmentalist, you may not picture large numbers of Black Americans fighting to save the environment. If that's the case, we're about to challenge that thought because there are plenty, and you can find them working in fields of conservation, environmentalism, and activism. Coming up on the next Another View, you'll meet three men who are doing their part to make this region we call home a better place. Find out how Thelonius Cooke, Tyrone Jarvis, and Otis Jones are actively involved in methods to protect the environment. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this national, regional, and local news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View. I'm Another View producer Lisa Godley, filling in for the birthday girl, Barbara Ham-Lee, who is taking some well-deserved time off. Now, before I delve into today's discussion, I'd like to share some information about a forum being presented by the Norfolk Community Services Board, Project ORF, and community partners in mental health and wellness. It's called Surviving Through Mental Health, and it kicks off Thursday, July 17th at 5 p.m. at Chrysler Hall and promises to be an evening of connection and healing to educate us on how stressors can show up across generations and how to collaborate as a community to bring healing, resilience, support, and understanding. This event is free and open to all, and parking is complimentary. For more information, go to norfolk.gov/surviving through mental health. That's Thursday, July 17th from 5 p.m. until 9 p.m. at Chrysler Hall. Well, across America, Black men and women are making tremendous inroads in the environmental movement. From environmental justice advocates to park rangers, these men and women of color are consistently making an impact in the environmental movement. And if that has you wondering, what can I do? You're about to meet three people who have turned their passion for one thing into a journey of change for a better Mother Earth. Joining me today, I'm going to introduce to some and reintroduce to others Thelonius Cooke, one of the stars of WHRO's Emmy Award-winning documentary Against the Current, which looks at how climate change and sea level rise is impacting life on Virginia's Eastern Shore. Thelonius is a Farmer of the Year and is the owner of the Mighty Thundercloud Edible Forest, where he uses organic resources to grow some amazing crops. Thelonius, welcome back to Another View.
Thanks for having me, Lisa. Always a pleasure.
All right. Also joining me, we're so glad you're here. Also joining us is Tyrone Jarvis, the owner of Go Green Auto Care, who uses rainwater that falls on his business as his main water source. Tyrone, welcome to Another View.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I can't wait for you to share how all this came about and the journey you have taken to get where you are today. And finally, Otis Jones, board chair of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Welcome to Another View, Otis.
Lisa, happy to be here to share my thoughts with you.
Now, Otis, your background is in finance, but your family history has a strong connection to the Chesapeake Bay.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to start this conversation by asking each of you to share a pivotal moment that got you started on your environmental journey. So you can start with probably your family history.
I will. Otis Jones, born and raised in Weems, Virginia. That's an area in Virginia called the Northern Neck, right on the Rappahannock River. My father was third-generation oysterman and menhaden fisherman. All of his uncles were watermen. So that's the heritage that I come from. How I got to be involved with the Chesapeake Bay is a long story, but I'll give the quick, short version. I was speaking to college kids at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County when I worked for IBM as a sales executive. And my talk was on how to build your personal brand. And I talked about my work with the Richmond Forum, where we brought speakers from the world stage to Richmond, all the former presidents, including the Obamas. And I was sharing with them my family's heritage along the water, and especially my father and his grandfather. His grandfather was Captain Jerry Carter, who was one of the first African Americans who was a steamboat runner. And basically he moved produce and livestock from Irvington, Virginia, south to Newport News, Hampton, and as far north along the bay to Crisfield, Maryland. And that's how my father got involved, and all of his uncles in the water, because his grandfather was involved in that. The head of HR for Chesapeake Bay Foundation was in the audience. She was obviously there recruiting students as a part of her job. She went back and told the then CEO of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation that, hey, this guy Otis Jones might be someone we might want to bring up on our board because of his background. And lo and behold, they figured out how to get in touch with me through a board member named Mark Horgan from Richmond, who was also on the board of the Richmond Forum when I was the chairman of that board. And that's how we got connected. We met, ironically, at a restaurant called Rappahannock in Richmond, had dinner, the CEO of the foundation, Will Baker, Mark, and I, and that was in 2017. And I joined the board in 2018, served as vice chair, and now I'm chairman of the board, rolling off in January of next year. So that's how I got connected.
And I know your dad passed a while ago, but he's got to be smiling thinking about what you're doing for the Chesapeake Bay, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Tyrone, your pivotal moment.
My pivotal moment.
What happened to get you on this road?
It was sporadic and all of a sudden. I was on a journey at my shop, Go Green Auto Care in Newport News, just to be a sustainable, earth-friendly repair shop. And in the course of just trying to start and build my business, we had a unplanned issue, and that arose in the form of a burst water pipe. And our bill cycle was like every 2 months. When that bill came in, it was like $5,000 or more of water that had been wasted, went undetected underneath our concrete slab of our shop. That kind of hurt me. I was disappointed, sad at the amount of water that was wasted, and reached out to the water company, and to my surprise, the leak was on my side of the property. And I made the comment to the water worker at the time, wow, I'm heartbroken about this. There has to be a better way. My desire was to go solar. It was all my focus, and hoping to save and invest in that technology. And his comment was, well, what are you going to do? Catch rain? And something just went off inside of me. I couldn't wait to close that day, get home and Google to see if catching rain was even a thing. Never heard of such a thing. Wasn't aware of any water issues at all. And I stumbled across the rainwater harvesting manual. In fact, it's called the Virginia Rainwater Harvesting Manual. It was made by a gentleman called Cabell Brand. And this gentleman highlighted not only the need and the reasons why we should save water, be concerned about water, but how we should invest in the technologies like rainwater harvesting. And it outlined the plan, gave you all the components needed, and I went full force, and it was just something I knew we had to do at our shop.
Okay, and you use rainwater for
everything.
Okay.
Just like a normal business or a house. So it supplies all our water for our sinks, our bathrooms, everything. We're automotive repair. We don't have a car wash. And most people think we're motivated by factors because we were a car wash, but we don't use that much water at all. We had a problem, looked for a sustainable solution, and that was the idea and the path that we took.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Thelonious, you're the person that uses organic resources on your farm, the Mighty Thundercloud Edible Forest. Tell us a little bit about your
Yeah.
pivotal point in your life when you decided this is how I'm going to farm.
Right, right. I mean, there were certainly many that I can think about throughout my life, but I would say most recent had to be when I went to Africa, and um, just like the environment that I experienced was, I mean, just so different. It was clear that so uh, much positivity had been put into it, and just preserving that environment, that it gave me joy. It kind of gave me like a certain like peace of mind, just seeing the different lush landscapes. And I didn't realize it until actually just now when I was thinking about your question, that I remember my first month there. We were at a language school that was on a organic farm, and this is before I actually started farming myself. And I remember making the decision that I wanted a farm way back then. So, and then fast forward to when I returned to the U.S. and was reminded that my family had land. It just kind of made everything full circle and gave me something to actually develop and build based on this sort of vision that I had of a sustainable ecosystem.
Let me ask you something. Did the food when you were in Africa, did it taste better? Was it what was it about that did you notice a significant difference in how food there tasted compared to here or
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Off the back, and I think the first thing I ate uh, off the street were bananas. I was on a bus, and then when the buses come and they pull into a town, you'll have children, or the women will come up to the windows, with baskets on their head and fruit, and at that point, you're going to buy whatever you can. But what I noticed, number one, they had many different types of varieties of bananas, and they had these small ones that they called Ndizi, and these things were like dessert. I mean, I ate a whole bunch of bananas in one setting, and when I came back, and tasted bananas here, it was a complete difference, and I realized that I had never tasted a real banana before, because coming back kind of just, they tasted like mush, so then I realized, okay, these things are traveled, they're, produced differently to make them taste like that.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing. We're going to shift a little bit and talk about some challenges that are happening and on this environmental journey that you gentlemen are on. And I'm going to start this time with Tyrone and ask him what have been some of your biggest challenge on this journey.
My biggest challenge, no surprise, was from the city. Um, Rainwater harvesting is just a new source of water, and just kind of like the common scenario, those who have power don't want to give up power. And rainwater being now a legal, potable, independent source was just something that cities were concerned about because, in my opinion, profits are their main concern. And so in 2015, when we decided to invest in rainwater harvesting, we had to change the law as part of our journey. We couldn't operate as a normal business. I wasn't able to hire. So it took 10 years to not only to change the law so everyone in Virginia can use rainwater as a potable source, but also write the regulation. So it was a challenge because the theory and the old saying, you can't fight City Hall. And it was a long, strenuous journey and very stressful. But we had a lot of heroes that came to our rescue and to Virginia's rescue. Where it was unexpected help, some might say, but our delegate, Republican David Yancey, I call him my hero. He saved our business immediately when he intervened and walked through our door. He saw the technology. He understood the potential it had and how it could impact and give the tools to Virginians in the future. So we partnered together, and it almost is pretty much a good example of how democracy should look like. Even though it came from a party that genuinely or usually is not associated with environmental causes, we were able to get support from all parties. And water is so vital to everyone, no matter if you're black, white, Democrat, independent, or Republican. And that was the beauty of everything that happened. It was bringing together just a team of people who I call heroes that helped us change the law and then write the regulation. If it wasn't for the support of those forward-thinking individuals, we wouldn't be here today. And it's a great Independence Day for me. July 1st ushered in a new law that we just changed as of this year, and it exempts all rainwater harvesters that are doing it on a scale like my shop, Tier 4, which is a potable off-grid system. You're exempt now from any city ordinance that mandates you to connect to their water. It also prevents any city from condemning your property, whether it's a business or a home, and prevents them from imposing any penalties because of your actions to save water and have wise water management as part of your structure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Otis, challenges. You're chairman of the board. What has been in that time your biggest challenge?
Can I segue from his
Sure.
talk real quick around capturing rainwater? In the city of Richmond, Second Baptist Church specifically, Chesapeake Bay Foundation helped that church capture rainwater as part of the mission we have in the community to support communities. So they captured the rainwater, and then they used it in the garden that they created right next to the church. And the next step was to then have the water run off and be contained in an area when hard rains hit pavement. So that's just an example of how we get engaged with the communities around that particular
Excellent.
topic as an example. One of our biggest challenges for the Bay Foundation is the blue crab, and how are we going to help reinvigorate growth in the blue crab as one of the species that's important to the ecosystem of the Chesapeake Bay, just like the oyster, which helps clean the bay in its way. So blue crab is one area we're really focused on, and by 2026 we'll have a full assessment done in a scientific way, because science is what we use to base how we go after investment, as well as specific areas where we can help communities and other organizations. The other area that's a challenge for all of us is the impact of weather. And I don't just mean hurricanes or things like that. Rainfall, the heat we've been experiencing in the last 2 weeks across Virginia, especially what that heat does in urban areas where it hits the pavement, it can't really go anywhere and it stays there because there are not enough tree canopies in those areas to offset it. And that's why we focus on trees as a way to help communities by giving them an opportunity where they can make a change in a big way without a huge investment.
I think you're enlightening a lot of us, because when we think Chesapeake Bay, we're thinking water, 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 and you just said something about trees.
So, and then the third area that's a challenge for us is going to be, what is the impact of the new administration's focus on reducing the amount of investment with EPA and other environmental agencies, NOAA, et cetera, that help fund specific projects in states that need help or urban areas that need help in order to combat the impact of not having clean water. And the three of us are talking about clean water, not just clean water to drink, but clean water is like the key to sustaining the ecosystem of the bay and other areas. So as chair, those are the areas that we're focused on, along with others. And then lastly, I would say is growing and sustaining the volunteers that make up the Chesapeake Bay Foundation and make it what it is. We're only as good as who we educate and who volunteers in the communities that they live in. And I can say without a doubt that we've been around for a long time, since 66, 67, and we will be here a long time to come because of the volunteers and the commitment they have to support clean water.
We're going to give you a chance a little later on in the show to tell people how they can become one of those volunteers. Thelonius, I know that you face some challenges as a farmer using organic practices. You want to share a little bit about what your biggest challenge has been?
Yes. And one, just being able to make it a viable business, because it is so much harder to farm the way that we do. Requires a lot of intensive labor. You're not using a lot of heavy machinery. You're trying to avoid tilling the ground. So that everything that we do is about building the soil health. Building a self-sustaining ecosystem to manage the pests, so that you don't have to spray a bunch of chemicals, pesticides, herbicides. So it is much more intensive, but being able to get the value in return, for all the work that we put in. A lot of farmers do it and don't often pay themselves, and especially as a black farmer, coming into it, we were sort of a dying breed, and there has been sort of a resurgence of younger returning farmers, and it's because they care about the environment and their health, and those things go hand in hand. When you are able to create and produce food in a healthy environment, that's going to equal a healthier community, healthier people. So just really getting the support, if folks to know. The value that it takes, and just trying to build, and there wasn't a lot of resources there for us. A lot of the things we're, as small farmers, we're trialing, we're learning how to do it sustainably on our level.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, if you are just joining us, we're talking to environmentalists who are doing their part to protect Mother Earth from pollution and destruction. I'm joined by Thelonius Cooke, an organic farmer on Virginia's Eastern Shore, Tyrone Jarvis, the owner of Go Green Auto Care in Newport News, and Otis Jones, board chair of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. If you'd like to join the conversation, please give us a call at 757-440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. All right. Okay. Now Tyrone, you told us a little bit about where things are standing with some new legislation that has just kicked in. What are your goals for the future at this point?
The legislation that just was enacted July 1st, I have to thank Senator Danny Diggs. He stepped up, and together we lobbied for the successful passage of that recent law that exempts all rainwater harvesters. So our goal now, my immediate goal and benefit personally for my business was we are allowed now to hire. So I'm now a normal business after 10 years of having to do everything on my own. I have two bright, outstanding young individuals who are learning at community college in the automotive program, and now they're working at my shop. I'm also looking for another individual to kind of help fill the need to, and look forward to growing this business and rolling the model out. But more importantly, for Virginia and everyone who lives in our great state, we would like to educate and inform them of not only just the need to save water and have wise water management practices, but reduce the stigma behind rainwater harvesting. There's an ick factor still that
I was about
think,
to ask, what's the stigma?
Yeah, it's like it's secondary or low class, dirty water, and that's not at all what we're regulating as the new law. We're filtering water. My system at the shop, we have screens on the gutter. We have a downspout filter that it's like a first flush device. It filters the rain again, and it also prevents any initial rainfall from entering into our tanks until there's about 20-minute rinse of the roof. Then that water is piped in and fills our cistern inside the shop, and it holds 2,000 gallons. Inside that tank is a floating filter that rises and falls with the water table, and from there the pump takes that filtered water from the cistern up into our sediment filter, our carbon block, and our charcoal filter. From there, our UV device is our last stage of filtration, and that renders the water safe from any bacteria that our microfiltration didn't address upstream in our treatment train. So from there, we're having crystal clear, potable water. It's what I've been drinking, and now the public can also, with the regulation that the health department now has authority to give you a permit. As of our conversations earlier this year, there's no cost for the permit if a homeowner or business wants to adopt this kind of practice. So we're hoping to kind of break the stigma. And years ago, and if you go to other island countries, you're going to see rainwater harvesting as a common practice in the Caribbean. And centuries ago, this was the way we got our water. Civilization and the progress we made to be a civilized society and pipe water to our doors and have sewer treatments it's not conducive to our current climate on Earth. And we need more nature-based solutions to offset the challenges that we're going to face. So we're hoping to educate people and reduce that stigma. We also have started a nonprofit. Well, my son has. I'm proud of him. He's following our footsteps as fighters for the environment. And Alexander Jarvis is his name, but he started a nonprofit. It's the Society for a Secure and Sustainable Water Future. And their goal is going to be to promote rainwater harvesting, educate the public on the need and how to do rainwater harvesting safely and effectively. I failed to mention for the last 10 years of my journey as an automotive service center, I went to school to be certified and trained as a rainwater harvester, and I'm internationally certified to design and install systems. So we're hoping to have his organization and his nonprofit get enough help and donations that we could sponsor projects, and those who can't afford a rainwater harvesting system, or those who don't have water at all. In the 6 years of writing a regulation with the Virginia Health Department, and I have to thank Lance Gregory and Anthony Creech at the state health department level, we've identified 20,000 residents in Virginia. Most of them live in the Appalachian area. The terrain is so rocky, they can't dig a well. It's too expensive,
Wow.
impossible. And city services can't.
Reach 'em.
So now this new law that went into effect, they can now not only have water without the fees that they've been paying a private commercial hauler to fill their tanks, they can now have this type of filtration system and live like I've been living for 10 years, but without the regulatory red tape. So now they have a pathway forward.
You've got to be proud of that accomplishment.
Yeah, I'm happy for Virginia. I'm so proud of all the heroes who stepped up, and I know we're going to need these tools in the future to survive and have balance in this earth.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Otis, since being elected chair of Chesapeake Bay Foundation, what have you advocated for in the fight for bay protection? Is there anything that's been like, I'm Otis Jones, and this is what I would really like to see happen?
That's a great question. Obviously, my connection to the bay through the oyster is an area that I focus on a lot, and that's around oyster restoration and also oyster harvesting and the growing of oysters. Not just because they taste good and I like them, it's because they do so much to clean the bay and its tributaries based on the filtering that the oyster provides. The other thing that I'm most proud about, or at least continue to advocate for, and that is equity in how we look at environmental issues that affect the entire Bay community. The watershed starts in New York through Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, down to Virginia. And what happens upstream affects those of us in Virginia downstream, because either farm runoff or pollutants that are north of us come down the bay through Maryland and then here in Virginia. So we need to continue to look at addressing this problem holistically, as well as continue to do the advocacy work we do, whether it's with state legislators or the federal government, with different companies and organizations. This all comes together every year in June when we have Clean the Bay Day. Literally around the watershed, organizations, whether it's a Rotary Club, whether it's fraternity, sorority, whatever, they come together and they go and clean up the waterway wherever they might live. And I've had the opportunity to do it in Richmond, Maryland. This year I went to Rotary Park, one of the oldest African American parks in Petersburg. It's part of the Lower Appomattox River. And we cleaned up the waterway and the hiking trail of this park. For me, it was a learning experience. I knew about the Appomattox, but I did not know about this specific neighborhood where there is so much that the local people are trying to do there. And, we're there to support them, to do the cleanup work and work with these different organizations. And as chair, I don't just preside over a meeting. My job is to be out in the community with our constituents and volunteers and others, really understanding how to make an impact, and come back and share that with the rest of the board, along with the other duties in terms of fiscal responsibility that we have to oversee the funds that we have to support the different environmental things we get involved in.
Okay, all righty, thank you. Thank you so much. Thelonius, the last time I think I talked, at least when our cameras were out there, you you were getting more black farmers involved, and you were having, and showing them that space. And where is that in your journey?
Yeah, so still doing it, still building my farm as a demonstration place, for people that want to make that transition, to the land. They want to get that experience, get their, toes wet. And we actually have another retreat coming up in a few weeks. So really just kind of finding that footing and, continuing to advocate for land access for people, because that's one of the biggest challenges, for folks that, that want to, return to the land and be able to manage a space. It's a barrier, if you don't have access to land. And so, especially in Virginia, we have a lot of underutilized land, and a lot of it is agricultural land, traditionally that might have been granted way back in the colonial days, and over time has passed down to sometimes folks that don't even no longer live here and stuff like that. So figuring out how we can, connect, those spaces, to Black and Indigenous folks that want to return and want to be able to, feed themselves and manage, like I said, a healthy ecosystem. So yeah, still doing the work on my farm as well as working with other farmers, in a cooperative, so that we can support people, exchange knowledge, just create safe spaces, for folks to grow and learn together.
For someone who might be interested in, and I say that because I have an intern that's very interested in doing the retreat, staying on a farm, seeing what that's like. Tell me or our listeners, what it's like if you come out to do a retreat at the Mighty Thundercloud Edible Forest.
Yeah, so like I said, for one, many of us have poured into our spaces, and that, like, you feel that when you come to a space. I feel it when I go to some of the other farm spaces, and it comes from just creating that positive environment. And every living thing, has, positive, and you don't have to raise bees to know that you can aggravate a bee, and you can upset a bee, but you can also create a positive environment. And so when you have all these things interacting, you can hear from the birds the way they sing, and so having these, spaces, number one. So then when people are coming from, let's say, an urban, city, or, maybe they work a 9 to 5 and they're always in a concrete space. Number one, we try to just help people ground, just kind of settle in, tune yourself. We all have to kind of go through that filtering, that cleansing, period. So that's usually the intention of like a Friday. And then Saturday, wake up early in the morning. You can help harvest if you want with me, because I'm usually doing farmers markets, Saturday morning. But that experience I found, I take it for granted, but somebody who doesn't do that, and to be able to see different vegetables and how they grow. Oh, that's how watermelons grow. And then we'll, have an actual farm to table lunch, so things that we do harvest, then we'll get a chance to prepare and eat. And then there's all sorts of natural trails and things which you experienced out there on the Eastern Shore nearby that I'll usually take folks to, to the water so we can experience a sunset or something like that. But And then, I mean, all the little things, bonfires, sitting up, stargazing, so yeah, it's definitely an intentional grounding experience to rejuvenate. And
Thank you so much for sharing. I know there are folks that, are really absorbing that information. All right, Tyrone, now if somebody is interested in turning their whole cycle around and they want to harvest rainwater and they said, that's a great idea. I think I can save some money and help the environment all at the same time. Where do they start? What's the process?
Well, it's something I would gladly help them with. They can contact us through our website, gogreenautocare.com. And we're definitely actively trying to guide people and assist in any kind of way we can. We want to provide systems for them. We're looking for ways to help universities make a commitment to these kind of water saving practices. So we're asking them, to help out anyway. There's a link on our website if you want to give to our foundation to help others and help us educate everybody. I would say to people, whatever you're doing, if you can get a small victory, we all want this great big, one bill that will solve everything. But if you can get one policy change, it's a giant step that has an enormous ripple effect. And we can learn lessons from other entities that were successful to turn things around and change and upend statues that's been around for hundreds of years. And you got to chip away at it. And if you can find common ground with people and come to some type of compromise, then take it. And your help comes in like different forms. You never know who's going to be your advocate and for you. And I'm really proud of how Virginia being one of those first successful settlements, now being the leader in potable water. And if you're a small home or a small business, 25 or less in your home or business, you're protected under our new law. And I think we're going to have a rise in other states who are going to be interested. They're already calling in to the state, nice. Asking how they could move their state forward. And we're like one of 3 states out of 50 in America that actually allows you to do it at a potable level and gives you the independence to operate just like well water has its considerations. Now rainwater harvesting has that same protections and considerations. So I'd like to thank all the legislators who voted for us, and the governor's office. I'll be next week attending one of his events that will highlight regulations that have changed to benefit Virginians and small businesses, and I will be there sharing my story next week, and I'm honored to do that.
Nice. Okay. Otis, how do people become volunteers if they want to clean the Chesapeake Bay?
First, they can always go to our website, cbf.com or Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Type that into a search and it'll come up. They can find us on Instagram or Facebook or other social media outlets as well. Just type in Chesapeake Bay Foundation. So that's one way to get in touch with us. I did want to provide a linkage to what Thelonius does. Most people don't know that the Chesapeake Bay Foundation has its own farm in Upper Marlboro, Maryland, where we raise our own beef, grass-fed, and lamb, and vegetables, and grow trees that we end up planting along the streams in places like Pennsylvania and other to help with keeping the water streams clean. So I say that to say we're all connected, even though we just met. We're doing work that's interconnected.
Nice.
And one of the outcomes of this gathering will be, I think, a connection that we will share with other ideas and other people that we'll introduce each other to. So that's how you'll find out about Chesapeake Bay Foundation. That's how you'll find out about Go Green. That's how you'll find out about your sustainable farming methods and the work you're doing. Last point I would make is around the work we do at the Bay Foundation from an advocacy perspective is critical to helping all of us be successful. And, the environmental education is important, especially for young people. And in Virginia Beach, we have the Brock Environmental Center that's open and available for people to visit and get educated about the Bay and sustainability. A LEED certified building, one of the top in the nation. We have visitors from all over the U.S. and the world come to see us. So that's how you can get in touch with us.
Wonderful. Thelonious, you have my last 30 seconds before we switch over to something new. Tell us how folks can, if they want to come out for a retreat or they want to know more about organic farming. Yeah,
the best way, they can follow me on IG at Edible Forest. Also, I mentioned our cooperative, which is at Black Farmers Coop. And if you ever want to come and experience a lot of urban farms in one day, we have a Delaware farm crawl coming up on August 8th and 9th. So they can go to blackfarmers.coop and learn more about that.
Wonderful. Gentlemen, thank you all so much for all that you do and for sharing your journeys with our Another View audience. When we come back, time is winding down to the country's 250th birthday. And on tomorrow's 249th Independence Day, there will be a fascinating discussion taking place at Fort Monroe, moderated by PBS NewsHour anchor Jeff Bennett. The speaker is historian Dr. Anthony Parent, who will address the collision of cultures that came together in early America and the relationships between Native Americans and enslaved Africans and English colonists. Also joining the discussion is State Senator Mamie Locke, who is co-chair of the VA 250 Commission, and we'll have that conversation right after this. Dr. Parent and Senator Locke, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate that. Senator Locke, you are co-chair or chair of the VA 250?
Co-chair.
Okay, all righty. Tell me a little bit about what brings this gentleman here.
Well, we've been trying to get him here for some time now because of his colonial history background. Emeritus professor from Wake Forest University. So we're happy to have him here for celebrations on tomorrow.
Tomorrow's the day. Tell us a little bit about what we can expect to hear tomorrow evening.
Well, tomorrow evening, I'd like to speak about in my talk, I'd like to speak about in the context of birthright citizenship. That's under discussion right now in the Supreme Court. This is old wine in new bottles. The court is looking at birthright citizenship from the point of view of the 14th Amendment. And maybe we forget why the 14th Amendment came about. It's, of course, the Civil War Amendment, and we're thinking about it in terms of slavery and the enslaved, but it also was about the free blacks at the time. There were over 1 million free blacks at the time of the Civil War, and they did not have citizenship rights because the Dred Scott decision had denied them those rights. Well, that was a campaign that had started actually with the American Revolution. I'm using the words of John Chavis, who was a Virginia Revolutionary War soldier, an African American, who John Chavis would say in 1830, "If I am black, I am American born and a Revolutionary War veteran." And what he was meant by that was that, look, guys, I served in the American Revolution, yet my citizenship rights are being challenged now. And why is that? And so what had happened was that by 1830, certainly, there had been a campaign by the American Colonization Society. That organization came about in 1816. And that organization came about to remove free blacks from the country and send them to Liberia. Now, actually, this is a Virginia program. It's a Jeffersonian idea. And if you look at Liberia, you'll notice that Liberia has its capital is is Monrovia, named after James Monroe. So the Colonization Society was targeted or began in Virginia with the idea of removing free blacks from the country. Now, this is interesting because it comes at the same time that the country, for the first time, is beginning to recognize the needs of their Revolutionary War veterans. It follows the War of 1812, and they realized that these men now were old and many of them sick, poor, and in need, and they said we need to address this. So in one of our first social welfare programs, the country decided to give pensions to American Revolutionary War veterans. Now, these veterans were revered in their neighborhoods and their communities. And of course, these include African American veterans. So at the same time that the Colonization Society is attempting to remove their citizenship rights, the country is recognizing all veterans. Now, in their attempt to remove these citizenship rights, people who had recognized their African ancestry at the beginning of the revolution, when they finished the revolution, because they couldn't receive full inclusion, African Americans formed their own organizations. They formed their organizations such as their churches, the AME Church, African Methodist Episcopal Church, their own mutual aid societies, the Free African Society. You might notice that African is in the naming of their organizations. Even though they were embracing their citizenship, their newly won freedom, they also recognized their African ancestry, and in part because they were being challenged. And they were even being challenged on holidays like the 4th of July. And so, if I go back to what's happening by the 1830s, then they're really under attack here. They didn't succeed in removing African Americans, but what they did succeed in doing was denationalizing them, beginning to take away their citizenship rights. And so their descendants began to look for ways, so what can we do in order to regain or maintain our citizenship rights? And what they would do is look back to Crispus Attucks. I'll wrap it up. They looked back to Crispus Attucks, and Crispus Attucks was the first to die in the American Revolution. He was an African American, and they began to celebrate his day, the 5th of March, rather than the 4th of July.
Okay, we are definitely out of time. This all starts at what time tomorrow night?
Starts tomorrow at 8:45. Actually, all the activities will begin tomorrow morning at 8:45 with a naturalization service, and it goes on to tomorrow. Dr. Parent will be speaking tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening.
Thank you both so much. I'm so sorry we had to cut that down, but we are definitely out of time. We really appreciate you being here today. Now, if you missed any part of today's broadcast, you can listen again at whro.org/Another View and download the podcast. You can also find this show on Spotify or wherever you go for your podcast listening pleasure. Next week on Another View, Barbara's back, and she'll kick off Another View's 15th anniversary, joined by Dr. Eric Claville, who will break down the recent developments coming out of the Capitol and Washington and the White House. Our theme music is an original composition created by Jay Sennett. Happy birthday, Barbara. Dr. Barry Graham filled in for me as today's producer. Thank you very much. Jordan Christie is our audio engineer. India Ray Davis answered our phones. I'm Another View producer, Lisa Godley. Please be sure to join us next Thursday for Another View.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever, whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.